Where are we looking? We're looking the other way.
Yeah,
More
I
of a
got
front
that.
row kind of girl.
When this records, will this be available on
Except I don't want to be in
YouTube?
the camera.
I had to stop it on YouTube because Google kept
Go sit in the back.
tearing, kicking videos down, saying it violated community standards. They kept taking them down, so.
Was it the ones with music?
No, it just, that they kept coming up with bull crap excuses, and
When-
so I stopped. I put them up on the group
Okay.
for people to watch.
I'd like these 4 classes to be on YouTube if we can. So I put my gifting class on YouTube. Actually, I need to probably share that in this Facebook group because I shared it in my other one. But it
I'll try and hope that Google doesn't take them down.
okay.
I quit doing it back in January because of that. Censoring all our stuff.
That's wild. They got the red books. I see them all stacked up there. This, I was like, oh man, this is like this is my jam.
Yeah, and it's crazy because people were clamoring for a class. Like huffing and puffing that they wanted like a class. And
We'll be here.
here we
Some
are.
will come here.
Here we
All
are.
right. I think some of my Pittsburgh folks are going to join us.
Well, that's good.
I need a coffee or we're going to have a very sleepy class.
Hey Joe,
Hi, Kristen, good morning.
morning. Sorry, I meant to be there, but my daughter has a job and apparently I have to drive her and be her Uber. So
How old is she?
14. This was her idea. She wanted a job.
That's cool. Good for her.
Yeah. It just, then it falls on us though.
So stupid. Let's see whose red book looks the worst. I don't actually think it's mine. It's yours.
Mine's old. I've had it for a long time.
Mine?
It's just the posting.
Mine was a gift from Brandy Shope.
Who is
She
Brandy
was the
Show?
team leader here
Way back.
way back. That's what it was. QuickTime. My QuickTime video player was causing.
I got mine as a gift, but I don't remember from who. But I have 2008
Hmm.
in it. So I don't know who gave it. I don't remember anymore who gave it to me.
I remember when I got mine. Katie bought mine at Family Reunion for me. Katie Clint. My first family reunion. Oh, I've had mine for a long time.
It's funny, Ryan and I were we were running our team off of the MREA and the other company we were at. I mean, it's the book that does it all.
Where's that?
If you're online,
It's just straight hand. It just went
give me a little
Yes.
hey,
260.
let us know you can hear.
Looks pretty nice.
I think it's just Kristen, isn't it? So I think the other,
Why?
We have Jeff.
oh, there we go.
There's Kyle.
Yeah.
Jeff was in.
Mhm.
All right,
Looks
so
equal.
here's what I did. Good morning.
Morning.
Were you in there with Ryan?
Yes.
I was like, who's in there? I was gonna go pester him, and then I was like, oh, it looks like my actual meeting.
Sorry, we're a couple minutes late.
You're good. Casual start.
279.
And then the songs.
So we are being strategic here. And that I'm using the business planning clinic slideshow because the business planning clinic teaches the 4 models. And it is a perfect, it's a perfect framework for what I was hoping we would do. Because first of all, everybody will need to have paper, working paper, because we're gonna build your economic model. Like, this is going to be way more labor intensive for you than the average class, because you're like, let me put it to you this way. So the models are designed for you to understand the structure and numbers associated with your business. Right? It's yours, it's individual. So the whole idea of the millionaire real estate agent, the concept of that is that these models are the framework to allow you to build $1 million net business. Okay, so we're gonna use the book. We're gonna use the book a lot. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to go to page 67. So what Gary talks about here is that, oh, good morning. I'm Joe. I'm like, I'm ready to go. So.
That was before coffee.
I know, I didn't even get to go refill. We're gonna, during one of your work breaks, I'm gonna have to go. We have 9 people online. I can't see who they are though, because do you guys just switch seats?
Yes, because I forgot my book and she forgot her book, but I've already read it. So she's gonna share with Lori.
Okay. Cool. We got some Pittsburgh folks.
Nice to meet you.
Good. We've got some Pittsburgh folks. We've got some New York folks. Let's do this actually, because we're gonna work together. It'll be very intimate. Let's do names. So I'm Joe Cipollini. I'm like the mysterious Ryan's business partner that has very seldom been here for the last 1.5 years or so. I've taken on the role of the chief sales officer with Integrity First Home Buyers and Liz Hamburger team. So I'm basically, if you want to think of it, I act often as the rainmaker of leads over there. I've actually stepped away from that particular role into the Chief Learning and Development Officer there. So I now run nationwide education for investing and something called innovations, which is a type of real estate transaction. And we have a national level education program over there that we run. So that's where I've been. We did like 420 deals last year over there. So it's a fun organization to tinker with all the sales systems. And we use these models, by the way. So okay, so let's do introduction. So
Dave Dara and fairly new agent.
awesome. Good. New agent with lots of notes in your book. I can't wait to see what your contribution
I
is.
didn't go that far yet.
That's okay. All right, Tina,
I'm Tina Urente, 19 years in business.
19 years. Awesome.
Kathy Brandt, I've been in business since '89.
Okay.
Lori Hawkins Smith, and 25 years.
25 years.
Carly Click, 2 years, just starting with Keller Williams,
Okay.
basically today.
Today,
So,
welcome.
thanks.
Absolutely.
Nicole Yanks, 11 years.
11 years. Okay. Anybody online want to chime in and do an introduction?
Right.
How can I help you?
I'm working with the cleaning company.
Of course I do.
Go ahead.
This is Lydia. Hey, I'm Lydia Holton, and I just started at Keller Williams exclusive Pittsburgh East as the team leader.
Yeah. We have a new, she, and also Lydia runs all this awesome business out there as well. Who else?
Hi, Mindy Weichert Kaufman, 19 years in real estate, 13 with KW.
Thank you. Anybody, any of the other black screens want to introduce themselves? No. Okay. Good. So when Ryan was asking, you guys are off mute. I can see you. I think that's some of the PC agents are in that screen. So when Ryan was asking me to teach, and we were talking about this and just talking about the fundamental models, I think there's a little bit of like it seems like a big thing. It seems like a topic that's a little bit distant and a little bit it's like hard to get attached to the models in a certain sense. And I think that we can simplify them, make them accessible, and personalize them to you. And one of the things that I think is also maybe not quite grasped or understood about the book is that it's really a book designed to change the way that you think about what your business is capable of doing. And so the actual the model itself, so the total overall model is this triangle right here on page 67. And that is leads, listings, and leverage are the three components that you need to think $1 million, earn $1 million, net $1 million, and receive $1 million. So that, the way that I just put that, does that make more sense? Like right off the bat? Okay, so leads, listings, and leverage. So before we go into the 4 models, economic model, by the way, I'm gonna give you guys the easiest cheat. You'll never need to ask, what are the 4 models, the 4 fundamental models of real estate ever again? It is elbow. So today we're going to do economic, but it's economic, lead generation, budget, and organization. ELBO, elbow. Everybody got that? That's why those are the 4 classes for.
Can you repeat them? Yeah.
Sure. Elbow, ELBO,
Yeah.
economic model, lead generation model, the budget model, and the organizational model. And they kind of have an order because the economic model is the business plan. And then with the business plan, you identify how many leads you need. And then once you know how many leads you need, you can build a lead generation model to support the business of whatever size you're going to make. And then as you're doing that, you need to make sure that your finances are in line. That's why the budget model I'm not saying that the budget model needs to be third, but that's why I always like to think of it that way. I think it's a good way to teach it that way as well, right? To build a budget model, because if you look here, right, if you look in this model, right, the overall model of the book of think $1 million, earn $1 million, net $1 million, receive $1 million, until you're thinking $1 million, you don't need to worry about your budget. And until you're earning $1 million, because you're actually doing the business, there is no budget to keep accountable, right? So budget model and then the organizational model, because that at some point, the breaking factor isn't the amount of leads you can create, it's actually the amount of capacity that you have, and the breaking point is you. And if you're the breaking point, you need an organization. And so that's why we talk about the hiring path for real estate agents. And you'll see as we dive into the organizational model in the 4th week of June, you'll see why so many teams are broken. And they're not really a team, they're more of a glob. And that leads to financial issues. It leads to organizational structural issues. It leads to retention problems for those teams and for the brokerages that they're attached to. So when you follow the path of understanding your business plan, which is your economic model, and then you build lead generation around that, it leads to problems like having money, which then you need to have a budget for, and problems of capacity, which then you need an organization to run. That makes sense? Okay. So for today, we're going to talk about the beginning part of the book and specifically the economic model. But I think to set the stage for that, we need to understand a little bit more about like what the intention is of the book and what the intention is of the models, what they do. And so the book actually starts with in this first chapter, and this is on page 71, it's the 9 ways that the millionaire real estate agent thinks. And that is actually where we're going to start. So we're going to start with these 9 ways that a millionaire agent thinks. We're going to do this from the perspective that we want to understand that a well-built business is going to be a stable business. A stable business is going to start with models that create sustainability and scalability, and then creativity on top of that. So the right one, and I don't know, this slideshow is from Business Planning Clinic, so shame on them for the letters all being funky, but models first and then creativity, as opposed to a business built on creativity first and then models. Boring is good as a foundation. Think of it from a new home construction. If you went to a new home and you pulled up and the construction crew is like, you just picture it, right? You pull up and the construction crew is like, we have the coolest idea ever for the way we're gonna pour the concrete like this, because it'll be more fun, right? And we're gonna do something that's never been tried before. And you're like, on my house? Can we not do that? Why don't we have a boring straight line with a 90-degree turn, right? You get to picture that? Okay. So it's the same thing with building a real estate business. It's the same thing with building any business. But the interesting thing is these models that we're going to talk about and the 9 ways of thinking kind of will sound boring in some regards. That's why I'm actually teaming it up. But these models you can apply to other businesses. Does anybody own another business or do anything else? Anybody come from another business? Another industry? Ever been in the entrepreneurial space before? Okay, I was hoping for somebody. So I've done this with an event planner before. Who wanted to figure out the financial model for growth in their space. You can use these models for a lot of things, but at the beginning, right? The reason that you need to think differently, and we're going to come back to these 9 ways of thinking, but the reason that you need to think differently is because your natural ability will lead to your ceiling of achievement, right? And so what you see on this, and it takes you on kind of a windy, curvy path, right? You like hit your natural ceiling of achievement, and then you sink down from there. It becomes a downward curve. Then if you use some models, you'll have a breakthrough. And then you can apply a little bit of creativity. Then you can improve the models that you're working with and have another breakthrough. And then you can, so once you're using some foundational models, that will allow you to get fancy. So one of the places that you'll see this often, like I said, is the organizational side of things. The other place is in lead generation. Like, I'm gonna use the fanciest, newest lead generation tool that someone's calling me. Who gets cold calls about different lead gen sources, right?
all the time.
So like, I'm gonna use the fanciest thing that they're calling me about, the shiny bells and whistles and all this other stuff. They promised me such and such results. It's like, cool, well, what's your actual real estate business? What does it actually look like? If you're depending on these people that are sending you leads, and that is the lead generation model that you're applying to your business, you don't really have a business. You're just an extension of their income stream. So if you want to be different, if you want to push that next level, I think these 9 ways of thinking are incredibly valuable. And these set the stage for the economic model that we're going to dive into. So the first thing, and these are the foundational ones. The first one is you think powered by a big why. So one of my favorite questions, you can write this down, you can stew on this later when you're having a sleepless night, is, and this is a question I ask my coaching clients, is what will make me go to work on the days I don't want to go to work? What will make me go to work on the days I don't want to go to work? I will tell you, I've toyed with doing the math of how many hours, because there's like some apparent threshold of like being of thousands of hours of coaching. I'll tell you that in a lot of hours of coaching with a lot of clients, that the missing piece is often this. Pretty much everything beyond this, including setting goals, is secondary. Because if you don't have something to make you wake up and just give it your all, you won't. And when it gets hard, you're gonna bail. So thinking powered by a big why. Number 2, thinking like a millionaire real estate agent is thinking big goals and big models. There's a really cool picture that I like on page 80. It's actually very closely related to a concept from the book, The One Thing. In The One Thing, they talk about setting a someday goal with a very lofty, long-term, large-scale projection, and then they call it think big and act small. And I think that's a quote worth writing down. Think big and act small, because thinking big and acting big usually leads to scattered all over the place activities. Thinking big and acting small is saying that I want to build $1 million real estate business, and the very first thing I need to do today is call 10 sellers and nothing else until I do that. That's like connecting $1 million to 10 calls. Thinking big and acting small. So think big with big goals and big models. The third thought process, so that picture on page 80 is kind of a before we move on, that's very similar to a picture that's in The One Thing, but they show you that like the models that you need to build, or think like the structure that you need to create for production for $80 million a year, those big habits, like if you build habits that are $2 million habits, those habits you'll outgrow them, and you won't know it. Like you'll be like, why won't I ever? Anybody ever have like a kind of a ceiling where they hit? You see this oftentimes where there's like people that just like people who are on an exponential curve of growth, and people who are just kind of like they plateau, and it's just like they can just wake up and do it. And if that level is good enough for them, then they're going to be okay with that. But like that doesn't help that growth trajectory. It's because of whatever their habits, whatever their identity is that they've taken on, actually becomes the ceiling. And so thinking like, what does an $80 million person wake up and do? What are those habits? And doing those when you're only selling $1 million actually helps you have exponential growth. Does that make sense? So number 3, if I was to tell you what the second unsung hero would be of the nine ways of thinking, like a millionaire real estate agent, it would be this one: thinking value and customer service and experience. Who wants referrals? Who has referred somebody that sucks? Who's like, hey, I went to this car dealership, it was the worst experience of my life. Ever do that? No, I hope you didn't. I hope you didn't send somebody to a place that
No.
sucks. So if your customer experience and customer value sucks, and you all want referrals, and by the way, they're the best ROI you can have in your business from a lead generation perspective, you need to deliver on a great customer experience, right? So I think that we often talk about sort of all the other things. We talk about lead generation, we talk about the paperwork. Like if you were to say, like, what's the education in real estate like? It's usually one of those 2 things. It's how to generate more leads, because that's the sexy topic, and it's how to do the paperwork, because that's the one that keeps us out of prison, right? Those 2. Well, the one that's in the middle is customer experience. That's actually why I taught. I might have just got booted. That's actually why I taught the that's why I taught the gifted agent class. I was asking Dave, as you guys were coming in, on whether that was on YouTube, because that class is about delivering a great customer experience. So I actually have it on the Pittsburgh YouTube. So anybody who's in Pittsburgh, if you go to the YouTube page for Keller Williams exclusive, that class is there. It's about delivering a great customer experience. But if you are extremely intentional and purposeful about building a great customer experience, that in itself can set you apart to show up like a $1 million real estate agent, right? And I think that's a question to ask. What does a $1 million real estate agent experience feel like to the customer? Who's had a really great customer experience with anything that you've been a purchaser of?
What wasn't me, it was my husband, but by default, we purchased a Mercedes-Benz convertible up in Rhode Island. It was a certified pre-owned. And that salesperson was like freaking amazing, because we rented a car here, drove it one way, and then drove the new car home. And it was just the most amazing experience. Like, they found a hotel for us. They, like, treated us like royalty. And of course it was a convertible, so they had it like super detailed, and we were going to drive it home with the top down. Of course, it rained like nobody's business the day we went to go pick it up.
Yeah.
And so they drove it into the dealership, like in the showroom area, even though it was like a used car, and took the top down, put the top up, took the top down, like, until my husband really understood how to do it, because like, I'm not touching it.
Yeah.
But it was really nice. Like, who drives the car that you're buying into like the showroom? Then they called him to make sure we made it home okay because of the rain. And then they have kept in contact, like every 3 months, this sales guy calls my husband just to make sure that he's still enjoying the car. And, like, how many miles has he put on it between the last phone call, which is usually 0. And, because yeah, it's not really a car to drive. It's a car to like worship and look at.
Yeah.
But it's just been amazing.
So, okay. Who could picture themselves there hearing that story?
Yeah.
Like, I could like see it. I could see you in the dealership. I could see the top up and down. I could sense the feeling of how valued you felt when they called you to make sure you got home okay, right? You guys, so how do you create, like, that's cool to do once. It's a one-off if it's once. it's a model or a system if you can do that for every single customer.
They have repeat clients. So they're in Rhode Island.
I've never even been to Rhode Island.
It's in Newport, Rhode
Okay.
Island, this dealership, and they have clients who have bought multiple vehicles from them who live in California, Arizona, like every state in the union almost.
Yeah, I can understand
This
why.
particular dealership is just like, it's been family owned for, decades. It was like amazing.
So we won't go on this tangent too long, but the reason that I think it's such the unsung hero behind Powered by a Big Why is because in an absence of value, the only thing you can negotiate is price. And so in an industry right now that has a lot of pressure on it from a financial perspective, having a super dialed in value proposition and customer experience protects your business.
Can you say that again? In the absence of value.
In the absence of value, the only thing you can negotiate is price. Because I didn't hear you say one peep about what you paid for it, but you did whatever it took. You went to Rhode Island to get a car. The value proposition was so high. The value proposition for people from California to go buy a car in Rhode Island is so high that they'll do it. See that? Value proposition will determine the amount you can charge. What's the fundamental function of a hotel room?
Sleep.
A place to sleep. So why do you pay one amount for the Ritz and a different amount for the Quality Inn?
Experience.
Cleanliness.
You see that? All bed bugs. But like, that's like, right? I mean, if you think about that from a fundamental perspective, the Ritz versus the Quality Inn, it's the same functional thing. It's the experience that drives the difference in money. Okay, so the next of the 9 is thinking competitively and strategically. Listen, some people have a little bit more of a competitive edge than others, and some people have a little bit more of a desire to think strategically. I think the reality is that this book kind of gives you a little bit of the cheat codes to be able to do those too, if you have or do not have those natural desires. But if you're thinking like, what's the difference between my, $1 million real estate agent and somebody who stays in the business for 2 years and then drops out, it's going to be, did they think like competitively? And when I think competitively, I think the will to win, right? $1 million real estate agent thought is to think action and accountability. So said very simply, it's doing it and then measuring that you did it. So go back to my think big, act small. Think big, I want to make $1 million, act small. The next thing I need to do is call the 10 people. If you don't call the 10 people, what are the odds you're going to make the $1 million in 4 years? Right? So here's a question to ask yourself. By the way, action and accountability. So this is a question you can ask yourself, and you want to slap yourself on the wrist. If this week was representative of the year I'd like to have, how am I doing?
Terrible.
These are the mean coaching questions I get to ask people. If this week was representative of the year I'd like to have, how am I doing? You guys already felt that gut punch, right? And so here's this is cool. Like we're in a room today for an hour and a half. So like your year has learning in it, if this is part of your week, right? So your year has learning, by the way, that's number 7, okay, on this list. So, but you also have to have action. You have to have accountability. You have to make sure. So, and we'll talk about how you can build some kind of bumpers, some little safety bumpers around all 9 of these things, honestly, as we're going through the models. But action and accountability, without action, nothing happens. So number 6, they think millionaire real estate agents think talent, systems, and standards. Okay. So we talked about kind of how the fundamental models will start to play out, and I shared like the economic models, the business plan. Then you move into, okay, well, what's my lead generation model? If I want to close 100 deals in a year, how many leads do I need to generate? There's a mathematical solution to that. There's a number. We'll figure it out. Okay. But at that point where there's a capacity challenge, you have to bring people on. Number 6 is about people, talent, systems, and standards. And at a certain point, you move from being a tactician of the doing to being a leader of people who are tacticians and doing. And sometimes it's a blend, right? If you're a team of you and an admin, there's like not a whole lot of people to delegate to, right? It's like, hey, who's going to do this task, right? But what happens there is we need to make sure that we put those systems and standards in place, because and I love the word standards, because our results will sync to the level of our standards. So if we have crappy standards, if we have that one admin, and I'm just going to call them Sally, if we have an admin named Sally and we don't hold Sally accountable, Sally's the admin, and we say, Sally, you're going to just do my paperwork, you're going to do my social media. We give very little direction on that systems, right? We have barely checked if Sally is capable or knows how to do any social media, right? And then Sally doesn't do it. We get to the end of the week. Now we go to number 5, because we're thinking like a millionaire real estate agent. We get to the end of the week, it's Friday. We're going to hold our accountability, and we look and say, we didn't post a damn thing on Facebook, right? Well, that was us as leaders. That's the millionaire real estate agent that is starting to go to that next level, starts to think talent, systems, and standards. And that's really a measure of leadership. Number 7 is thinking of knowledge and skills. So again, props to everybody for being in the room, or the 11 people online. It is about putting the things into your brain that help you get the things you want in real life. So what's the difference between knowledge and skill?
Action.
Tell me more.
Knowledge is knowing what to do. The skills are actually implementing them.
Okay. Anybody else have any other definition of those two? Knowledge versus skill.
Would skill be something that's maybe something that it's instinctively something you do, and knowledge is learning the things you're not good at to do? Maybe, I don't know.
I think you're on to something. You're both kind of on to it, but I would maybe separate it out a little bit more. Anybody else have a take on this?
Maybe book learning versus boots on the ground experience.
Right.
learning.
So yeah, so knowledge is going to be like the book learning. It's like knowing to know. Skills are going to be learning the actions, or learning how to do the actions in a more effective or efficient way to get that result, right? So knowledge, a great example, I was talking about how the industry has kind of divided education into these two. And I'm not saying across the board, but just if you want to think of it, not in learning into 2 different buckets. There's like knowing the paperwork, and then there's knowing the lead generation. Lead generation, like cold calling or language skills, right? That's like something you can do, you can practice. Whereas the knowledge of how to do the paperwork is like you learn it, and it is what it is. Make sense?
Mhm.
Millionaire real estate agents think persistence and resilience. True or false? This industry is good for your mental health.
No.
So I think there's a lot to unpack there about persistence and resilience, but there's just something to be said for grit. There's something to be said for pushing through. And I think that number 8 and number 1 are absolutely best friends, because when you are powered by a big why, persistence and resilience are easier. Right? It's a great book called Great by Choice by Jim Collins. He talks about, it's actually a book I'll probably reference a lot, totally outside of the KW ecosystem, but it's just a phenomenal book, Great by Choice. And one of the things he references in that book is the 20-mile march. And the storyline that underlies this whole book is the trip to the South Pole. And there were two competing expeditions going to the South Pole. And one that everybody made it home and one that nobody made it home. And I think the lesson there is that sometimes persistence and resilience can be a little bit boring, but it has to be fortified by those big why with like very strategic like oomph behind it. So ultimately the 20-mile march concept is that the team that made it there and back, they marched 20 miles whether the weather was good or bad. They were persistent about that and consistent. And I would say that goes, if you can look at all 9 of these, maybe not the profit, although they did end up making some money, but you can look and they said like, they thought action. When the weather was crappy, they still took action and they were accountable to marching 20 miles. When you think talent, they recruited people to go on that expedition that knew what they were getting into and were game for it, right? And they had standards for who they were bringing on. I don't think their customer experience was all that good, but although they all did make it, so that's something. They were powered by a big goal and they had big goals and big models, and they were powered by a big why. You look at thinking competitively and strategically, they knew that there was somebody else that was in play. And one of the things that they did with that 20-mile march is they were very strategic about where they placed their supply drops to be able to make it there and back. The other group just went like 40 miles when the weather was great. When it snowed a lot, they like hunkered down. And they didn't make it. Like literally didn't make it home. They didn't make it to the pole. They actually did make it to the pole, but when they got there, the flag was already there. Womp womp. And then think profit. So profit is this mysterious being. It is the bottom line profitability. It is the money that lets you do the things that you want to do. So if we go back to the page that we originally were talking about, which is 67. Now, if you think differently about these 4 things of think $1 million, earn $1 million, net $1 million, and receive $1 million. Now it changes that perception of what thinking like profit really means, right? If I said that this class was designed to help you make $1 million profit, would you pay very close attention? Because that's literally what this is about. I think that, I'll be honest, I think Shift is a more easy read. I think it's a more engaging read, but that's what this book is for. It's not called The Millionaire Real Estate Agent for no reason, right? It's the recipe to think of how to earn, net, and receive $1 million, okay? You might choose not to take the actions. That's okay. You may just not want to be it. I don't have $1 million real estate business. That's okay, right? So we're gonna do a couple things from 1, 2, and 5. We're going to come back to these. That's why I need these. So number 1, right, from the nine ways that millionaire real estate agents think, is powered by a big why. I want to give you 2 minutes, and that's it, to write your big why. And it's short for a reason. 2 minutes. Might even be less. Everybody says I'm done. Everybody online doing okay? Can you hear us? Maybe not. Let's chat. Thanks, Allie. 1 minute. Your big why. What is the thing that will make you go to work on the days you don't want to go to work? Okay, shares. Who wants to share? If I go first, will that help?
Yeah.
Okay, so my big why is to create a very fulfilled life for my family and specifically my daughter Lydia. When I say fulfilled, I don't mean wealthy necessarily. Although great experiences, great travel, all of that is part of that picture for me. But it also is being present. It's being able to take her to the zoo, being able to take her to school in the morning. So working 85 hours a week would not be a fit for that lifestyle. See, so now I understand that sets a stage and standards for the life that power my life, right? That power my work life. So that's my big why. Who else would like to go? If you're willing to share.
So I've always wanted to retire at the beach.
Okay.
So my big why would be to get a property at the beach.
Oh, good. The number 2 is gonna be excellent for you. Mine's hard to quantify, by the way. So like, right? Because like,
Right.
it's like, well, how much money does that take? And what
Right.
is that, right? Like, so what is that? Yours is actually gonna be way easier than mine. I've had to do the math work of mine. Yeah.
Mine is to earn enough income through real estate sales to purchase rental properties and create passive income so that my husband can retire at age 60 if he chooses to. And that's because I've watched both my parents basically retire on their deathbed.
Mhm.
So that's my big why.
It's powerful. Seeing your parents not have that
Yeah.
ability. Who else? Anybody online want to share a big why? To keep them,
Engaged.
yeah, watching the weather or something. Come on, somebody.
Yep, it's gonna be me.
Yes.
My big why is to help my husband with the financial burdens and allow our children to live and enjoy a comfortable life.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing.
Welcome.
Anybody else? You don't have to, it's fine. Okay. So the difference between number 1 and number 2, the difference between a big why and a big goal is that the goal, anybody ever hear of a SMART goal?
Mhm.
What's a SMART goal?
Strategic,
No?
Measurable.
measurable,
Measurable. Attainable?
attainable, realistic,
Uh-huh.
and time bound.
Yeah. S is specific. Okay, so specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, time bound. A, I've also heard is action based, but so. And I'm not emotionally attached to either one of those. I think that the thing to think about there is like, is being the first human being to step foot on Pluto attainable?
Right. Probably not right now.
So, but so there's some beauty that can come from a stretch goal, and we're gonna talk about, I'm a big, so he's become a controversial person, but we'll just put all of our emotions to the side, and we're gonna talk about Elon Musk for a second. So does anybody know what Elon Musk's goal is? Sort of. It's sort of space travel.
wants to
It's
do
actually very
like-
specific.
Wants to do like a colony, like a living colony out in space.
Yeah, so not just out in space, but on a specific place in space. No,
Mars.
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 He wants, thanks, Mindy. He wants his goal, specific goal, is to create habitability for humans on Mars. Because he basically thinks we're ruining this planet, right? So that's relevant because I said, your big why is gonna be the thing that helps you get up in the morning and like keep going on the days you don't want to keep going. How do you think Elon and his entire team felt the day after their very first attempted rocket launch and it blew up? Probably not very good. And they had to get up, keep going. And then they blew the second one up. And they were about to run out of funding. And on like Christmas Eve, they came in with this last minute ability to raise capital to keep the company, SpaceX, going, right? And that's relevant because his goal, he set a very lofty, borderline attainable, right? I think the cool thing there is that there's some magic that happens at the stretch place of where attainable and realistic happen. And for us as individuals, like it may not be Mars, but it might be like $1 million in 5 years. Right? Big wide eyes. And like some people will shut down on that. They're like, well, it's just not real. Right? So, but I think that something cool happens because when you think like that, it changes the perspective. Because I'll tell you, so one of the amazing opportunities that I have with the education development side of the investor world is that $0 to $1 million in 5 years is 100% attainable. And I've met a number of people that have done it. Not just $1 million in net worth, but $1 million in the bank. 100%. I was talking to somebody, I was having breakfast with somebody in Sarasota 2 weeks ago. It was a $60 million rental portfolio. He was worried about his 7-figure tax bill.
Jesus. I'd be worried too.
Right? But so yeah, you're like, holy crap. Like I'm sitting there and I'm just like, this is such an awesome, fascinating conversation because it goes to the thinking differently. The conversation in that at that breakfast table at First Watch was about cost segregation and tax write-offs and like all this like amazing thinking that happens in wealth conversations and doesn't happen at small conversations. And I'm not talking smack on other, I mean, I'll get together and have small conversations all day, but it's a very different feeling to be at a table where there's a big conversation happening. That makes sense? Right? And so, because I might not have thought about a 7-figure tax bill until I was hearing about a 7-figure tax bill. And I was just like, okay, all right, it is doable, right? The guy's not even 40. Wild, right? So sometimes it takes a little trigger of belief to be able to think about that type of stuff that may otherwise not seem possible. So your next target, your next activity is to write your big goal, your big 1-year net income goal. And so we're right at the mid-year mark. You have a choice. You can either write down what you're committed to for the end of 2023, and you can accept that the first half of the year is what it is, or you can say, I'm going to set a 12-month rolling goal, and by June of 2024, this is the income I want to make. And today's day 0. So you can go either way. So I want you to take a minute or two. And here's the reality. You have something in your big why that fuels that from a quantitative amount, right? What's the amount? Like I know what the amount is that it takes for me to have I need to move a certain amount of income from active income to passive income, because once I reach a threshold of passive income through various sources, rentals, whatever, that at that point, that lets me come back around to that fulfilled life for Lydia. Does that make sense? Because if I have it all active income, that's not possible. That's 85 hours a week of work. Or I need to increase the value of my dollar per hour time, which I can do through coaching. See, starts to educate your decisions. So now I'm like, okay, cool. If I have X amount of coaching clients, or I have executive level coaching. Some of these people pay like thousands, multiples of thousands of dollars a month in coaching. So to get to that point, what does that take? And what introductions do I need? And what skills do I need to have in order to open that door for me? And then once I open that door, like now my dollar per hour goes up, which then makes me more efficient on achieving my goal of that fulfilled life. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Like it's not as entrepreneurial as it sounds. It's actually very strategic thinking. It's kind of boring, to be honest, right? Success is often boring. So, okay, so that's your activity right now, is to take a look at that, your big why, and write it down. And again, you can choose end of 2023 and accept the first 6 months, or your 12-month rolling of what is your 1-year net income goal based on being able to achieve that. I'm gonna go read some more.
Where are you making? Should be your town right now. Kind of business to it. Something's really more.
Need down payment for all these, need passive income for that.
Mhm. Yeah, we need to.
To Gemini.
Okay. What's the number? What's the number? We need it. We need it all the rest of the day. So we can't move on until we know the number.
50,000.
250,000. Thank you. What's the number?
My number's 300.
Thank you, Lydia.
Mine's a little different because I don't have a full pension. So
I love, like,
my first year,
That's
this is my first year, so I just like another 60,000.
That's awesome.
there's no right or wrong.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I want a pension.
No, I'm
I'm jealous. Right? You hear me, I gotta like figure out all this, like, I gotta, what skills do I need to be able to be valuable to a CEO, right? You're like, I got a pension. I want to make 60 grand. That's awesome.
Right.
I love that. Okay. You know, not everybody has to give it, although I appreciate some volunteers. Thank you. So the reason that matters is because the economic model is literally the business plan, and the business plan relies on understanding what revenue you need to get out of your real estate business. Your real estate business is a business. Do you think that at the, this is one of my favorite ways to think about this conversation. Do you think that at the boardroom meeting of Coca-Cola, they talk the way that realtors talk?
Oh, hell no.
Hell no. What do they talk about?
How to increase sales,
How to increase sales,
be more profitable.
sales, profit. What else do they talk about? I love this. It's like you guys are in my mind.
Yeah, advertising,
Yeah.
Demographics.
Right.
like where they gotta put, new plants.
Market
to-
expansion.
Yeah.
All these things.
Hiring good staff.
Okay, so time out. Hold on a second. Still looking up. I don't want to go back. I don't know why it doesn't want to go back. Oh, there we go. They talk about that. They talk about profit. They talk about what do we need to learn or know? How do we need to, what people, staff, right? Talent and systems. They talk about action and accountability, right? They talk about their customer experience, like strategic expansion type of things. Yeah, okay. So if that's the way they think about their business, what is your excuse if you don't talk about your business the same way? That is the fundamental reason the economic model is the business plan. So I want to show you this real quick, and then we're going to move to the economic model. So this is really the 411, and you can look, a really great resource for this is the onething.com, the number one thing.com. And there is something in there called the Kick-Ass Guide to Goal Setting. And if you go under resources, they make you put your email address in. Don't worry, it's like not too scammy. They send you like a couple of resources every once in a while. It's really like, it's decent information. But the number one thing.com. And in there, they have a GPS, which is your goals, priorities, and strategies. And then they have the 411. The 411 is an action goal worksheet. Okay. The GPS is about more of like the visionary setting of your goals. Okay. This is where action meets goals. And so the reason it's called 411 is there's 4 weeks, 1 month, 1 annual. So you bring if your annual number that you had written down is $100,000, then under annual goals, and I'm not a big fan whatsoever of only having a quantitative goal. I think it falls really hollow on the days that you don't feel like going to work. So $100,000 for us to have enough money by the end of this year to be on pace for the retirement plan, that's different, right? So, because that's really hard to let that goal down. $100,000 is quantitative, it's easy to let that down. Having sniffles, I'm gonna take a short break, right? So 4 weeks, 1 month, 1 year, and your 1 year is a transplant of the goal setting that we just did. Okay. So if we're think $1 million, earn $1 million, net $1 million, I'm sorry, think $1 million, earn $1 million, receive $1 million, earn, net, receive $1 million, then it's leads, listings, and leverage. What do these 3 L's actually mean? This is day 1 for you. Holy moly. How are you feeling right now?
I feel excited.
Yeah,
I've had my license for 2 years, but this is my first day here.
yeah,
And it's,
Hopefully it's what you came
yeah.
for.
yeah.
it's-
Hopefully
It's
it's
exciting.
yesterday was Lydia's first day. So, yeah.
Yep, it was my first day and I'm just soaking it all in.
Yep.
So if we think like this, right, leads, listings, leverage, what do these actually mean? And I will accept your interpretation with zero judgment. What does it mean to you?
Well, you need to have leads in order to get more listings.
Yeah,
And if you have more listings, you can leverage your time because you're not running all over the place with 1 million buyers that you might not get the contract for.
okay, I love that
Praise
perspective.
God. Perfect.
I love that.
was perfect.
That's good. Any other perspective?
Well, you need leads to have listings, and then when you have an overabundance of listings, you can hire leverage, which is bringing in buyers agents or admin. You're leveraging so you can get your time back.
Perfect. See, 2 different perspectives, neither one right or wrong. Both have a lot of right in them. Okay, so leads. What you both said was you need leads. It all starts with leads. I would write that down. It all starts with leads. So leads generate listings. Why doesn't it say leads, buyers, leverage?
I think because you spend a lot more time with buyers and are never guaranteed a
Yeah.
dollar from them.
The listings give you buyers too.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
So this is a new agent topic that can sometimes create weird feelings because often newer buyers will come in and have a very buyer heavy business. Why is their business so much more buyer heavy?
Because they get leads from other agents in the office. They do beginning basic skill building things like door knocking and open houses that are heavy on the buy side. And they just have to learn the business. So you learn through failure, and there's no better way to fail than with a whole bunch of buyers.
That's right. So the reality is that listings control the pace of our industry, right?
Yeah.
And there's been no better proof of that than over the last 2 years, right? We had a major constriction in listings. And actually, it wasn't even so much a quantitative restriction as it was a time restriction. You just had that huge pressure on the market, and the listings were just 0 days on market. And actually, this model was tested hard because the ability to leverage your listings, you had to force leverage because time wasn't on your side. Now it's changing a little bit, right? But there's still we're like 24 to 27% down on listings right now. And so he who gets the leads that help you get listings right now is controlling the pace of the industry. That's kind of always true, but when the market slows down a little bit, that feels less true. It can be easy to be like, whatever, I'll work with it. But like right now, that's very true. So I'm going to challenge a couple of thoughts on the leverage component. There's a couple of components for leverage. One is if you get the listings, every listing you can leverage to create more leads. Right? Because like you just said, you can door knock, you can do open houses. Well, you can't do an open house without a listing. Right? Reality. So you can use somebody else's. So what happens is the newer agents come in, they are the leverage. So they have to actually go upstream to build a business. And that can be a hard transition. Okay. Or people who are just like, I like to work with buyers. That's cool. You will just run out of time faster. Okay. So I'm not talking down on working with buyers. It's just a mathematical truth that it will cost you your time and energy. So leads drive listings, and the listings create the opportunity for leverage. Which one of you said leverage is more people? Absolutely true. Because leverage, right? Leverage is all about the ability to do more with less, right? Or to create think, what is a lever? Literally, like this is a lever. We use this coffee stirrer. This will be the fulcrum. That's a lever, right? If I have it in the middle, then the power to efficiency is equal. If I want to lift something heavy with the least amount of work, I'm going to slide that way out or way back. If I slide it way back, right? And this is something heavy, I have the ability to, right? You see that? That's literally what a lever is. So leverage is the ability to get efficient results from less. Whether that be through the fact that your listings create more opportunities, or the fact that you have other people who can come into your organization and do work that you don't want to do, or don't have the time to do, or isn't a fit for the lifestyle that you want to live. Make sense? Cool. So we are not going to do the fifth model. The fifth model is expansion. The truth is, I know the business in this building.
We're not there yet.
Nobody here, maybe Liz's team. So we have done expansion, super painful process. We're currently doing business all the way from the Jersey border to the west, the east side of Pittsburgh. We've done business in Westmoreland County. So we've done, that's ink lot expansion. We're also, we were doing business in Rochester, New York for about 6 months in 2021 into 2022. And then for about half of last year, we did expansion into Mansfield, Ohio. And when I say was doing expansion, and you say, well, why did you guys stop? That should tell you a lot. So, and we're looking at other expansion right now, but it's the hardest. And just truthfully, I have not seen any organization in this market have a system or business that would really justify expansion. for the most part. You can do expansion where you just are really a by locality, right? Like someone who maybe is in Florida seasonally and comes back here. It's not expansion necessarily. When you expanded your business, you just spread your business. Make sense? Okay, so the 4 models we are going to do is the economic model, the lead generation model, the budget model, and the organizational model. So the economic model is about the net income and the money. The lead generation model is you generate however many number of leads, which is literally the source of the money. The budget model is where the money goes. So you spend X amount of money in specific areas to support your business. And then the organizational model is when and who to hire and hiring the people to service it and grow, right? Okay, any ahas so far? Let me re-ask that. What ahas do we have so far?
I know I need to do the 411. I need to have like a budget. I've made good money the last 2 years. I don't have a lot of it left over. Just, my daughter got married, just different things. I've paid a lot of things cash over the last couple of years, with that money. So I need to learn what stays in my business, what goes to my personal. I mean, I've been in business for a long time, but I was with ERA and they never talked to us about any of this kind of stuff. So I've been here, this is my 3rd year. And so I really need to learn how to set all that stuff up.
It's time to adopt it, right? So 3rd week's gonna be great for you, the budget model. Because what happens here as these models kind of like evolve, and that's why I'm laying it out the way that I am, is like the economic models that overall business picture. And so for you, like you're gonna have a pretty good picture of your business. Then you're gonna move into cool, how many leads do I need to generate in order to keep that business sustained? And that maybe it's just about sustained or growth or whatever, it doesn't matter. But the budget is like, what happens with that money? Where does it go? We're gonna talk about the 30-30-40 model, which is 30% to fixed costs, 30% to variable expenses, and 40% to net profitability. And how to actually have a chart of accounts of how to budget. Like there's a percentage standard for the amount that you should spend on lead generation. And if you exceed that, you're taking yourself out of balance. There's a set percentage on how much you should spend on your people. So you see some of these teams, and this is actually the like, again, not to talk smack, and I don't really think we have so much of these here, but sometimes you'll see teams where they like have all this exponential growth and they'll bring on multiple assistants, they'll have showing assistants, all this other stuff. And Ryan and I will like sit back and we're kind of getting to be like those crotchety old guys. We'll just be like, there's no way, it's not financially sustainable. And then you watch these trajectories where they like do this of all this growth and then boom. Right? And that's why, because like who wants to run a team where you have to be a cat herder for 9 or 10 cats and then do all that and not make any money? And that 100% happens many times with teams. So from a budget perspective, we'll dive into all that, whether you have a team, want to have a team, don't want to have a team, doesn't matter to me. But just talk about like, how do you know what you're going to keep and then understand how much work. The economic model is going to tell you how much work you need to do, how many closings you need to have. And then you can match that up to your budget model and say, cool, so if I do that much work, I get to keep this much. And then you can just tinker with it from there. Oh, if I want to grow my business to make more money or figure out where my money's going, so be it. So that's going to be great. Any other ahas?
I think my biggest one is the customer experience. I've been a bartender for 20 years and literally that's how I make money there.
Yeah.
The customer experience, especially like even the Mercedes thing. Like people work hard for their money and they want, not just the product, but the experience. And, anyone could sell a house, anyone can get a license and sell a house, but I think that's kind of a big deal. Make it memorable for people.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad.
Yeah.
Well, I'll make sure that YouTube link is shared. Maybe I should watch that. Anybody else? What other ahas? What ahas do you have?
The 411, I need to do that. It was part of Ignite that I took, but I didn't do it.
They say it takes
Yeah.
7 times to hear something before you
Yeah.
hear it.
I think,
Quite some truth to that.
I think my aha has been that, you know, it's not just like a scary free for all where everybody's, you know, just like bringing in all the money and blah, 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 blah. But to actually sit and have a plan and have a trajectory, you know, toward your end goal. Not just, you know, taking everything as it comes, but actually being purposeful in setting that goal.
Yeah. That's really good. Thank you, Lydia. And we're like now, after all the suspense is built up, we're gonna talk about the economic model itself, but Kyle shared in there, in the absence of value, the only thing to negotiate is price. I mean, that's a great aha. It certainly makes me think inward about what value I offer, because if I offer a tremendous value, like the Mercedes experience, right? What can I charge them? That's a different perspective on that, right? Cool. We made it. This is it.
Yay.
This slide's not gonna change very much. We're gonna look at this a lot. So I'm gonna move. Bear with me. Move this over here. Is that good for you guys? Okay. This is the economic model. So
Is this in the book, Joe?
it is, a version of it is in the book.
Okay.
It's on page 131. So the upside down version of it is in the book. Page 131 of the MREA is the upside down version of the economic model. So we are not going to go too in the weeds of the top section, but that's where you are going to get a lot of information. Because when we do budget model and we start to talk about operating expenses versus cost of sale, and then talk about the difference between, because this is what the, so sorry online, the GCI is the gross commission. That's your sales.
Right.
But that's not what you make.
Right.
Right? The net income at the top is what you make. And your GCI is represented, like GCI is sweat, not net. Make that, right?
Mhm.
Because we feel the sweat. We're like, oh man, I worked my butt off. And I didn't get to keep all that much,
All right.
right? So we're gonna spend more time on the upper portion of this and really talking about operating expenses, cost of sale, those types of things when we do the budget model in 2 more weeks. But what I'd like you to do is, because I had you do, as Tim Ferriss says, you have to do the inner work before you do the outer work. And so we did all the inner work of laying the groundwork for the big why and some of your goals, because if we don't do that, you're gonna get to this screen and you're gonna say, I don't know how much I want to make. And if you write down a number that doesn't mean anything, then the odds that you're gonna make it are gonna be pretty slim, right? So all that other stuff that we did to lead up to this is really to set the stage for a meaningful net income target. Not just some random number you pull out of your butt, which is how a lot of goals happen. Okay? So a net income number that is meaningful. That's where we're gonna start. So I told you guys you need paper, and here it is. So in whatever capacity of neatness that you need, you can do this and start mapping out your economic model. There are computer, like you can do this in Excel. I had my big teams when I was a maps coach doing this in a Google spreadsheet so that they could, because what happens, don't get too caught up in this conversation. What happens in a team is that the sell side and buy side become org charts. So when a team starts to divide responsibilities, you have your listing side is your rainmaker usually, and the buy side is those buyer's agents, that's how the hiring process starts to get divided up. Does that make sense? So you can see really quickly in the Coca-Cola boardroom of our business, how this as a business plan starts to lay the roadmap out for everything. Because if you decide to be a 50-50 business, 50% sellers and 50% buyers, and you want to do 100 units because you need X amount to retire, see, all ties together. If you want to have that money to retire and then you want a 50-50 business and you're like, holy crap, 50 buyers. I don't have that time. But I have enough time for 30. And I can do 50 listings. So I need someone else to do the other 20 buyers. Boom, now we have a hire. Make sense? Okay, so it becomes that capacity thing and the leverage component of that. So first thing you need to write down is your net income. So yeah. There's gonna be an example here, but like, it's the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book and it's the millionaire model, so why wouldn't we use $1 million net? You can make it 100,000, you can make it your number, and then just kind of work through it. So if a net income is 40%. That means we need total GCI of 2.5 million. Does that make sense? Everybody got their phone? 2.5 million times 0.4 is $1 million. Okay. That lets you figure out your operating expenses and cost of sale, which will be 30% and 30%. Now you have all your numbers for your income. Income, so GCI, expense, and net income. So again, if you look here, we've flipped it upside down. If you're looking at page 131. All right, these bottom two lines are yours to write. So what's your average commission per unit? This is gross commission. Gross commission. Anybody want to share? If your average sales price is $200,000, right? Use like 2.75%, 2.5%, whatever it is you want to use for a commission rate, that's going to tell you. So if you're using 2.5% at $200,000 average sales price, then your average commission per unit is going to be $5,000. We're on the same page, or are you guys just doing math?
So I have like a gross commission of like $6,000
Per unit,
Yeah, because mine's around 230, 240.
but you're doing like 2 point something percent.
2.5%.
Perfect. So then what you do is when you figure that out, you divide that into your GCI. So what was the GCI number that you wanted?
I came up with 325.
Great. So do 325 divided by 6,000.
So 54.
54 units. See how that works? total units. So your units, total units times your average commission should equal your GCI. Let me know when you guys are down to the unit count. So you're writing it off the $1 million
Yeah.
example. Okay. So, and that's cool to do that, to write it off the $1 million example, but go back and then match it up to yours. So for you wanted to make 60. Do you want to take home 60? Or, okay, so if you want to take home 60,
That's 30.
30
I
units,
came up with 30 units.
30 units at,
The average was. what was it? I didn't write it all down.
gotta write them all?
Yeah.
Yep, everything as you go.
Average commission I had 5,000.
5,000, so then you need to gross 150, and if you gross 150, 40% of 150 gets you 60,000. Cool. Now, here's what starts to happen, by the way. Don't get caught up on those upper two of operating expenses and cost of sale. One thing that Ryan and I found was so you want a 30-30-40 model. That's like a bare bones basic. What we found was that as we built our team, that we were actually able to play with some of that money, and we actually had very low operating expenses, and we overpaid our agents on our team because agent pay is a cost of sale, not an expense. And we overpaid the agents on our team with better splits because it helped us have a better work-life balance. So you can tinker with the math and it helps you make educated decisions. But don't get too caught up on those upper two. GCI to units is the gold mine. Now, this is where that split, your energy, what percentage of business are you gonna put to each side? So this is saying that 50% of the 350 are gonna be seller listings. You see that? We're on the left-hand side. So 50% of those 350 units are gonna be sellers, which means 50% of 350 is 175. Everybody following me there? Okay. So if we're taking 175 listings, the sold conversion rate. So this number for the last 3 years, let me ask it to you in a different way. If you took a listing and put it on the MLS, what was the odds it was going to sell?
100%.
100%. What is it historically though?
It's about 85%.
It is about 80 to 85%. So you can use whatever number works for you. They use 70% to be super conservative. Now that matters. The difference between 70% and 85% is going to play out really important down here, because if your conversion rate 70%, you need a ton more appointments. Like a ton. Okay. If your number is 90%, because you price right, you're really great at the appointment, cool. This says that you need 250 seller listings needed to close 175. Everybody follow that math? 250 needed in order to close 175. This is saying that when you go to an appointment, there's a 75% conversion rate from going to the appointment to getting the listing agreement signed. Okay, now here's something to write down. Critical that you write this down. If it's a percentage, it's a skill. So your appointment conversion rate is a skill. That's how good are you in the appointment. Your sold conversion rate is how good are you at actually selling the listings you take. So what would be the skills? Remember we were talking earlier about skills and knowledge? What skills or knowledge would help you get your properties sold better?
Knowing the area.
What else? Because knowing the area, you're talking pricing. So your pricing, your ability to comp, what else is gonna help you get your property sold better? Once you get the listing agreement signed. You gotta know what skills are gonna take to do this. There's more.
Marketing,
What's that?
marketing.
Absolutely. That was the one I was thinking.
Days on market, all your stats.
All your knowing your stats, but also knowing the marketing, what Lydia just said, is like, that's how you get it sold. Here, that's sold conversion rate. In the appointment, what's the skill? What's the skill when you go in, you have never met before? Hey, Mrs. Seller, my name's Joe. I'm so grateful that you had me out here today. What would it take for us to walk out of here knowing that this was an appointment that we should move forward with a listing?
Personality.
Yeah, so personality is gonna help you, but there's skill that's attached to that
Language
conversion.
of sales.
You know, language of sales, yes. Yeah, so I think personality is a leading, that's a natural ceiling. So language of skills is something that you can develop. Yep. So that's your in the appointment conversion rate. So does that make sense?
Mhm.
Now I'm gonna show you, I'm gonna unveil the last one. Boom. So if you wanted to close, if you wanted to do 350 sales, again, these are huge numbers. Sometimes it's annoying that it's so big. 350 sales. If you wanted 50% of those to be listings, it would be 175. We all understand that? 175 with 350. If you wanted to close 175 seller listings, and your conversion rate of selling your properties, once you got them listed, was 70%, you would need to take 250 listings to the market. In order for you to take 250 listings to the market, if your conversion rate when you went to go get a listing was 75%, you would need to attend 330 seller appointments. Put it the other way, so again, that page is upside down, so now watch me. If you go on 330 seller appointments, you'll get 250 listings. If you get 250 listings, you'll sell 175. And if you sell 175, that's 50% of the target that you need to get $2.5 million in GCI. Follow me?
Yep.
That's why that's the business plan. Now, the reason you had to do all that inner work before was because we need that to be personalized to you. You're your Coca-Cola, right? So what is your business going to look like? And you don't need it to be 50-50, right? To be honest, if you're a solo agent or a small team agency, I would really advocate trying to push your seller side north of 50% because it will help you leverage your time more. So if you get yourself to a 60-40 or even a 70-30 very listing heavy based business, if you're a single agent, your time will be much more in your control. You may actually not even have to make a hire if you can pivot your business to be more listing focused. So does that make sense?
Yep.
So something for you guys to think about. Buy side. Hi, happy birthday. The buy side is the second half of that. No, in this example, the conversion rates they use are almost exactly the same, except they put the appointment conversion for a buyer at 70% instead of 75. Now, here, this is something for you to think about. I said that all the percentages were skill indications, right? But there's one other thing that's going on here, and that is the market conditions.
Right.
And right now, on the buy side, if you meet with a buyer, what are the odds that that buyer is going to actually be able to get a contract accepted?
Very low.
I mean,
5%.
in like, how long a time?
Oh, let's just say over the course of a year, because this is an annualized business plan, right? It might only be 50%, 40%, right? So the problem is that's this conversion. And the other aspect of that is then if you start to think about that from a business perspective, then rather than just being along for the ride on that conversion rate, maybe you start to think, okay, well, cool. How do I get myself ahead of the market conditions? If the market's at 40 to 50%, how do I get my statistic to be 60%? Now maybe I'm being more proactive on my buyer consults. I might be pickier, honestly. I might say no to buyers that I can just tell are not this goes to shift language, right?
Right.
Shift will tell you that they need to be ready, willing, and able to participate in the market. Well, now if you sit down with a buyer consultation and they're not willing to play ball in this market, or their expectations don't match it, maybe that's a no to you. Which actually then goes to this conversion rate, because you might say, I met with them, but I didn't take them on as a buyer because they didn't fit. So you see what I'm saying there? So the market conditions will definitely play a part in that. Okay, any ahas?
I have a question.
Yes,
Before you go on, can you break down the difference between operating expenses and cost of sale? Just give some examples.
yes, so operating expenses are fixed costs that are attached to your business. So your typically your lead generation will fall under that. Some other things like the cost of doing business, whether you're closing business or not. Cost of sale is at any expense that's attached to a sale, meaning you only pay it if you close. So examples,
So your office expense, like to physically have
to physically have an office is an
is
operating expense. Your
expense.
cap is cost of sale.
There it is. For listing, would be cost of sale.
If you, then he said,
I guess it's an operating expense.
because you pay that upfront, you don't pay it if you don't close, you still.
That's true.
In a year? So divide it by the week. Or the appointments, I mean.
Everybody get caught up on their math. Sorry, I was letting my 11 o'clock notes run.
Yeah, I know. I need to
I know.
run.
But this is it. I mean, like, there is no fancy bells and whistles to the economic model. Your face, but this is it. Like, so I've seen, like I said, when I was coaching big $2.5 million GCI teams running on this. They were running the $1 million net model. So what happens there, though, is it educates you on how much you need to do from a behavior standpoint. So now, right? So you're at 60 closings, right? 30 closings. So 30 closings. I'm just going to do quick math in my head. 15 and 15. If you want to do 15 and 15, let's say that means you need to take 18 listings to close 15, assuming a pretty good conversion rate. If you need to take 18 listings, that means every month you need 1.5 listings taken. 1.5 listings of listing appointments drives it. So that's that think big and act small. Because now you guys can look at that bottom number of total appointments needed for each buyer and seller and think to yourself, well, what do I need to do this week? That, by the way, fuels your lead gen model, which is what we're going to talk about next week. Because this is really where it goes from business plan of your business and transitions to what are you going to do to get there? Like, so if your number isn't 28 seller appointments a month, if your number's 4 seller appointments a month, have 48 appointments to be able to get to 30 closings or 35 closings, right? Well, then that means you need 1 appointment a week. And if you go through a week and you are at 2, then you're like, great. And if you're at 0, then you know that somewhere in the rest of the month, you need to have a week with 2, right? That's just having that business awareness. But then upstream of that, what gets you to this? What's the thing that gets you to a seller appointment? Starts with an L, ends with E-gen, right?
Yeah, you gotta have the leads.
That's right.
So you gotta make the phone calls
That's-
or.
That's exactly it. So now, if you're thinking in terms of the models that we've been discussing and kind of the, right, think $1 million, earn $1 million, like that pathway, if you want to get to this point, upstream of that is the lead gen model. Does that make sense? Any questions on this? This was we led all up to this math problem. I teased you with all this fun and then sent you home with math. Was it helpful? Have you ever done it?
A long time ago.
A long time ago.
Brown had something. They sent around,
Really?
kind of like that, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the book's been around since the 80s. And I mean, this formula right here, the economic model formula, like I said, Ryan and I were running that when we were at Howard Handy, the green side. That's how we built the team. Any, like, I'd love to hear a couple of ahas from this before we wrap up for the day. Okay. Thoughts? Surprises? Anybody surprised?
Simple, it's not easy.
Simple but not easy. Anything?
I'm surprised at how bad I am at math.
I'm with her. I think it puts it in black and white of what you actually need to do instead of sitting there guessing, well, what should I be doing
Mhm.
today? I mean, you have it in black and white, so you know exactly what you need to be doing.
For better or for worse.
Yes.
Sometimes it's like, oh, do I really want to do that much?
Right.
That happens sometimes. You do all this, you get to the bottom and you're like, I don't know if I want to do 3 appointments a week. Right?
Yeah. My worst thing is actually making the phone calls. Like,
That's what we'll talk about next week.
good, because I don't always know what to say to people when I get them on the phone, and I don't want to sound like I'm just being all salesy. You know what I mean?
That's what we'll talk about next week. Ford, yeah, Ford's the cheat. Anybody else? Was this helpful?
Yes, very,
Yeah.
Okay.
very.
You guys like just kind of running through so lead generation model is a lot less mathy. There's a little bit, apologize in advance, maybe I shouldn't have told you that, so you can still come back. But there's a little bit of math, but there's also the component of just kind of figuring out how to build a well-balanced lead generation strategy with multiple pieces. So thanks, Kristen, appreciate it. But otherwise, I'll see you all next week. Is that cool? All right, next week, same time, same place,
We'll be
Tuesday
here
morning.
with bells on.
I'll be here. I'm gonna try to see if I can't get you a digital copy of the economic model that you can just type in.
Oh, awesome.
I'll see if I can do that, because I know there's tools out there that are like that.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. All right, I'm gonna end the room if nobody has any questions online.